Okay, so ranked is down for a good long time. So I decided to do a basically a patch preview where I'm going to go over these patch notes before they come out and give you my general take on them. So, number one, Azir, this is being changed. They're making his Q cooldown 17 to 5 instead of nerfing his W range. I don't think it's going to do a single thing. Azir's problem is that he's incredibly overpowered and he has no counterplay. And once he is powerful, he tends to beat everyone at everything. He beats melee in melee. He beats range at range. He beats everyone at doing everything. He turns into a super hyper ultra mega carry who also is a lane bully. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly. At this point, I truly believe they should just nerf the AP ratio on his soldiers. I think they should remove the shield on his E. I think they should remove the double gap closer on his E, as in you can't queue the minions as you're in your E. I believe those three changes would dick on him hard enough that they could start working on the champion. I think increasing his Q cooldown is bad because basically the easier you make it to play a champion, the better they're going to do at the lower ranks. And all they're doing is nerfing the champion, but not making him easier to play. So he's just going to keep dicking on the high ranks and nothing at the low ranks is going to happen. So I don't think that Azir change is going to do anything. I think Azir is going to be pick ban at Worlds, especially because they're nerfing Corki. Okay, looking at these quirky changes. Now, these quirky changes were interesting because, here, let me show you. I want to bring up Israel because Israel and Corki are both big Sheen users. But I was looking at Corki's base AD the other day, and it's weird that it's, like, much higher than other similar champions. You could say this is how he's balanced, etc., but the thing is, when you do magic damage instead of physical damage, you do more damage, just period. You just do. Okay, that's just how, like, there's much less MR in the game. There's much less anti-MR in the game. Okay, so yeah, it just kind of, this seems maybe his base AD didn't need to be nerfed, but definitely his AD per level needed to come down. Maybe it's a little bit too much at this point. They could probably nerf his Gatling gun or something, one of his less interesting abilities. I don't know. This Dr. Mundo change. I want to talk about this one. So, let me bring out the old notepad here real quick. So, here's something interesting that not a lot of people know. 40% more MR on 55 MR equals 78. Spirit Visage used to be 70 MR. The giant buff they did to Mundo to try to push him as an anti-mage made Spirit Visage give him 78 MR instead of 70, since Spirit Visage has been nerfed so many times. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is all these giant buffs they've given Mundo, and everyone keeps saying, oh, they keep buffing Mundo, he's going to be viable now. They're basically just compensating for how much they've nerfed him indirectly through item changes. And, really, in my opinion, this might make him viable finally, but I really doubt it. At the very least, he won't be viable as an anti-mage. I think he'd be viable as an anti-bruiser. For example, laning against Aatrox, right? Surviving the Aatrox lane and then outscaling him in a 1v1. I think the best buff they need to do for Mundo, they need to make his E hit turrets again so he can split push. And I think they need to buff his passive. Instead of doing these changes, the change I suggest is doing something hard for Mundo. Doing something that just pushes him as a late game tank fucking hard. Okay? The change I suggested, and I don't know if these numbers would be balanced, but it kind of gets across the idea I'm putting forward. Just make his passive scale up from like 0.3 to 0.6 to 1.2 to 1.5 to 2.0. Then finally at like level 16, make it so his passive, not his ult or other effects, but his passive, just heals him 2% health per second, ignores all healing debuffs, 2% health per second heal, just 2% health per second. Something like that. Something where he is forced to be good as a late game tank. Because right now tanks suck late game, but he's a late game tank, so he sucks no matter what they do. So far as these changes, though, this is a very interesting one because this means you no longer have to get tenacity in your runes to have tenacity. So this means I could go, for example, Grasping and Dying into maybe something like Nimbus Cloak with a Transcendence, because I wouldn't need to get the tenacity from runes anymore. You only really want 2 sources of tenacity, and because he spent the majority of the game at 10%, this really wasn't a source of tenacity. There's actually a pretty large buff to Mundo. Now, this buff is also pretty big. You might not think about it, but can I find it in the tooltip? Yeah. So upon activation, Dr. Mundo gains attack damage for 5 seconds. Now, what this change does, this means that he'll get permanent attack speed damage against turrets with only 10% cooldown reduction, even at rank like 2 or 3. So that's a big buff. The second buff is he gets to activate it more to get that headbutt damage. He gets to attack reset. Now, this is a big one. He gets to attack reset with the bonus attack damage, much like Trundle's Q. Whereas before, he really, I don't think, could ever do that. So these 2 changes in tandem are both large buffs, but I don't believe that... I don't think Mundo's going to be good. Like, let's put it this way. He loses every lane against mages because Spectre's Cowl is shit and MR items are broken as fuck. He can start to come back after the laning phase. Like, after he gets Spirit Visage, after he gets his Bambi Cinder, after he gets, you know, his Ninja Tabby / Merc Treads, he can start to come back. But by then, look at competitive games, or even solo queue games. By the time Mundo is sitting at, like, you know, his 5,000 gold, the game's basically starting to wrap up. It's not coming back, it's starting to wrap up. Now, this Burning Agony change means that he might survive some ganks or some all-in attempts that otherwise he wouldn't. But I don't think making Nico's route lasting slightly shorter is going to make Mundo beat Nico. At the end of the day, I want to show you guys this because a lot of people don't quite understand this. Dr. Mundo, his rank 1 ult hits 25% of your current health, healing 50% of it, okay? His E, even at rank 1, does 25 damage to yourself. His W does 10 damage to yourself. At rank 3, his Q does 70 damage to yourself. That means over the course of a combo, and let's call a combo 4 or 5 seconds. Let's say 6 seconds, right? Over the course of a 6-second combo, you are taking 140 damage from your Q. You're taking 50 damage from your W. Okay, we're already up to 190 damage he's done to himself. You are taking 50 more damage. He's up to 240 damage he's done to himself, plus an additional 25% of your current health. It might be that your ult merely takes away the damage that you have dealt to yourself. I'm not saying it will be, but there is the possibility, you know, especially as you start ranking up some of these abilities and you start, you know, really hurting yourself. These get really painful, you know? Add in a healing debuff, add in an ignite or something, and Mundo will do more damage to himself than he does healing. That's just a fact. Echo, more buffs on Echo. Not really important. A buff to late game Chrono Break, a buff to phase dive. I don't really like this buff to Chrono Break. Echo's ult feels... What I would much rather they do is push Chrono Break to a lower cooldown at all ranks, then lower its effect, and make it more of like an ability you use all the time. Like, make it teleport to where he was 2 seconds ago. Make it, you know, so I don't know. I mean, it's just weird. Buffs to Fiora because Riot hates you. Riot just hates you. Do you play top lane? Then Riot fucking hates you. They actually just hate you. Buffs to Jax. Now this one surprised me. So let's go over this real quick. So Jax currently has fallen to the 13th highest pick rate in Masters Plus worldwide. That's pretty low for a champion who was mostly excelling at the high ranks. If you look at Platinum Plus, this is where he this biggest excel. He's only at a 50% win rate with still 8th highest pick. Now, this is where it should get surprising for a bunch of you. A bunch of people go, oh, but Jax is just a low elo stomper. But at gold, Jax might have an 8th highest pick rate, but his win rate goes down to 49%. In silver, Jax goes down to 5.8% with a 49.18% win rate. Jax, far from being a low elo stomper, actually only performs well at the highest ranks. Now, I've seen people try to excuse this base information. There is just base information. Bluntly, he does worse the lower rank you go. And you will see people excuse this. You will see people try to deny that this is real with stuff like, oh, well, Jax players are just bad. And, stuff like that. But bluntly, while at first I looked at these changes and I said, huh, that's weird. Why are they buffing Jax? Now I look at it and I say, oh, actually, he kind of is underperforming at all ranks. Now, I don't agree with this buff. Let me just be clear on this. I think this buff, the buff they are doing, is a bad idea. I think what they should do for Jax, they should give Jax a method wherein he can beat ranged opponents in lane. This isn't that. Jax jumps in, loses the trade, and it doesn't matter if he can jump in again, he'll just lose the trade again. I think what they should do is take Jax's W and make it work kind of like Yorick's Q in a way. So like let me give you the sheds right now. Right now it's 40 to 180, right? I think what they should do, make his W deal, let's say 20 less damage, 20 to 40 less damage. So it does 20 to 140 damage, right? But in return, it heals you for, let's say, 10, doubled if you're below 50% health. Just a little bit of a boost. This makes him a little bit less burdensome if you can't fight back against him, which makes some of his bad matchups, champions like Kled or Aurelia that, kind of struggle to lane against him. This makes champions like them a little bit more capable because it puts more power into Jax's sustain rather than his damage. But B, it means that Jax will have more ways and more capability of dealing with ranged champions, especially ones that are poking him down. I don't know about those numbers. I'm just saying an idea like that. I also think Jax's W should restore all the mana if it kills a target to make last hitting with Jax, especially when you need a little bit more range to avoid poke, a little bit easier. Okay. So, LeBlanc, I don't agree with this at all. This is a mage problem. Mages are one-shotting everyone. So, what about a mage who one-shots people? Unneeded. All mages one-shot everyone. The idea isn't that LeBlanc needs a buff. It's that all mages need a nerf, or else what's the fucking point of playing an assassin? If every mage one-shots everyone, then there's no point to playing an assassin. In fact, this is actually my favorite buff they ever did to LeBlanc when they finally nerfed her late game. When they finally said, LeBlanc, you're so good early game, you maybe shouldn't be killing people so easily late game as well. Well, now they're saying, never mind, fuck that. This changed the buff to LeBlanc's W. Here's the thing. I actually do have to agree that they went a little bit overboard with the Lux nerf. I saw a support Lux the other day and she shielded someone, and whereas her shield used to shield like fucking half of somebody's health bar, and I was like, holy fuck. Now it shields like dink. It's like dink. And I'm like, oh wow, they really went ham with that nerf. This Nocturne buff is, in my opinion, a bit of a fucking overbuff. And by a bit, I mean way an overbuff. Increasing his base armor, on top of increasing his base attack speed, on top of making his W triple attack speed if it blocks a spell. This is a very big overbuff. I suspect Nocturne is going to be pick ban after this shit. I'm not sure what's going on, because this seems to be a very, 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 very large buff. Let me put it to you this way. If you all in the laning phase, if you hit Q someone and you just start running at them, Whereas right now, if you break his W, his Shroud of Darkness, he gets 40% attack speed. He'll now get 90%. 90% attack speed for 5 seconds. You just die. That's a little bit of an overbuff. In one patch, on top of buffing his base armor. Oh boy. This is just Pantheon's PBE. This isn't live, so yeah. This change really isn't going to do very much, but they have said that they're going to put it to a 13 flat. If they put it back to a 13 flat, I think that's going to do a lot. 12 flat, I don't think does a lot. But nerfing her early game by a little bit, in addition to nerfing her, mid to late game, I think that might drag this champion down the line. And let's remember, this is currently Riven and Masters Plus. This champion is not fucking okay. This champion is far from okay. All the Riven mains are bitching at Aatrox. Aatrox looks like this. And let's go down to Platinum Plus, right? Aatrox looks like this. Riven looks like this, okay? So, both of them see similar levels of growth in win rates as you rank up. Aatrox's win rate goes from he's weak to he's a little bit over the top. Riven's win rate goes from she's a little bit over the top to she's just fucking auto-win. Sejuani nerf, buffing her Q, or sorry, nerfing her Q and her passive. You need 100 armor and MR to equal this old buff. In other words, it's not happening. This nerfs her tankiness, and this nerfs her mobility. Late game and early game especially. This Sion buff does fuck all. I've heard they're doing something else. Yeah, I've heard they're making his Q not have reduced damage to monsters. It seems they're trying to push Sion into the jungle. I'm not sure why. It feels weird to me. Normally, Riot tries to take bruisers out of top lane and put them in the jungle. Now they're taking a tank out of top lane and putting him in the jungle. I really don't agree with that. I think Sion is actually one of the most interesting top lane tanks, if not the most interesting top lane tank. He's like the only one when I fight, I think like, oh, this is kind of fair, question mark, you know? But certainly if they push him in the jungle, I mean... So let me explain why this buff is meaningless, so... These are all slight number changes that are meaningless. When they nerfed his Q, they nerfed it by 10 at tap. So you just tap Q, they nerfed that by 10. Then at 30, full charge, you hold Q till it smashes, they nerfed that by 30. Okay, so they nerfed it from 10 to 30 damage at all ranks. They're buffing it 10 to 10 damage. That means at half charge, it is still nerfed by 10 since it's over nerf. And at full charge, it's nerfed by 20 since it's nerf. This might, to the unobservant viewer, look like a revert. It is not a revert at all. And the big buff that they're doing seems to be that they're pushing him into the jungle. Now, buffing him against the jungle is not entirely a non-buff to top lane. Top laners do frequently farm the jungle. And Sion, especially being able to farm the jungle, means he can build more max HP. The problem is when they nerfed his W, and let's remember this, okay? Sion was way the fuck over nerfed, in my opinion, way the fuck over nerfed when they did this change. Now, this change didn't look like a very big change. At the time, myself and pretty much everyone else thought, oh, okay, you know, he'll probably survive this. But he didn't. This was fucking massive. I mean, this was a huge nerf. And in combination with this nerf, he had to choose between having his W cooldown way too long or having his Q not do any damage. Because remember, back in the day, they forced you to max Q by having the total AD ratio scale up rather than getting it all at rank 1. So if you don't max Q, you do no damage. If you don't max W, your W cooldown is way too long to survive trades. It's, in my opinion, a little bit too much. Now, they could push Sion in the late game. I think if they did something like, I don't even know, like added something maybe to his passive or something where at like level 13, his W shield is increased by 20% or something like that, you know? So like, if you get Sion to the late game, because remember, his W shield doesn't go on cooldown until it breaks. He cannot permanently W, okay? He's not Nautilus. But anyway, this is not going to be enough to make Sion a viable laner. It might mean that picking Sion like, isn't trolly anymore. It's not like a pure fucking troll. But let's go back and remember here, Twitch chat. Sion currently does not even have a 1% pick rate in top lane Masters Plus. Vayne top is a more common pick than Sion. The Syndra is another overbuff. Mages one-shot everyone, so what does a mage who one-shots people do? Well, they need to be buffed, right? But maybe nerf mages so they don't one-shot everyone. Then you won't need to buff every mage who one-shots everyone. I haven't even read these changes. These are basically some big nerfs on Yumi's Q. Just generally depowering her Q, which is fine. Ziggs getting buffed once again. Let's buff mages because mages are so overpowered. They're now competing with each other to be viable mid lane. Like, oh, big nerf on biscuit delivery. Just a big nerf on biscuit delivery. I don't know, man. Just a big nerf. And that's it. So there you go. In my opinion, biggest changes. Mundo, but I don't think it'll make him viable. I think it might set him up for viability later if they buff Spectre's Cowl. Nocturne, because this is a fucking massive buff. Sion, potentially jungle, but I don't think so. Probably not. And lastly, just Yuumi. This might be enough to finally take her from S+ tier. 50 less damage on her Q, less slow early game, much less duration late game, and more cooldown early game. That's bam, 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 you know. What is absent from this list is the Akali nerf and the Qiyana nerf. Riot seems to be leaving those champions broken for Worlds, so, oh well. Sorry, you're going to see a lot of Akali and Qiyana bans at Worlds because Riot wants them. And what Riot wants, they get. Oh boy, maintenance. Anyway, that's it.